A woman runs through the woods, clutching her child. Behind her, men in black uniforms chase with guns. She stumbles. The child is torn from her arms. And just like that, her name, her freedom, her identity all stolen. This is not a war zone in another land. This is America, or rather, what's left of it. Asterisk before everything changed. June Osborne was just like anyone else. She had a job, a family, and dreams. But then, without warning, the United States fell. One crisis led to another, plunging birth rates, political chaos, and rising fear. In the middle of all this, a group of religious extremists took power. They didn't just take control, they rewrote the world. They called their new land Gilead. And in Gilead, women had no names, no rights, and no voices. June was captured while trying to escape with her husband Luke and their daughter Hannah. Luke made it out. June didn't. Separated from her child, she was sent to a Red Center, a dark training camp where women were beaten, brainwashed, and prepared for one purpose only: to bear children. Fertile women were now called handmaids, dressed in red, stripped of their identities, and given names like Offred, meaning of Fred, property of the man they served. June became Offred. She was assigned to live with Commander Fred Waterford and his wife Serena Joy. In public, Serena seemed powerful. In truth, she too was a prisoner of Gilead's system. Unable to have children herself, she watched coldly as June was forced to sleep with her husband. This was the ceremony, a cruel act disguised as holy duty. Every month, June was expected to get pregnant. If she failed, she could be punished or sent away. If she rebelled, she could be killed. Her old life became a fading memory, and survival became the only goal. But June didn't give up. She watched. She listened. She remembered. In the silence of Gilead's harsh rules, a quiet resistance began to form. In secret moments, she found allies like the brave Moira, her best friend who once escaped the Red Center but paid a terrible price. There was also Emily, another handmaid who had been a teacher in the old world but was now beaten into obedience. These women were broken but not destroyed. As June served in the Waterford household, she was constantly tested. She pretended to obey, but she never stopped thinking. The commander, in a strange act of rebellion against his own rules, invited her to secret meetings in his office. He played Scrabble with her, gave her books, things women were forbidden to read. He even took her to a hidden club called Jezebel's, where women were dressed up and forced to entertain men. These acts didn't show kindness. They showed power and control. Yet, in those small moments, June gathered pieces of the puzzle. She discovered that the world outside Gilead still watched, still wondered what was happening inside this dark country. She also learned that her daughter Hannah was alive, taken by another family, brainwashed to forget her real mother. June's heart shattered, but her spirit didn't. By the end of season 1, something had shifted. The handmaids, once silent, began to raise their heads. A fellow handmaid named Janine was pushed to the edge after her baby was taken. She tried to jump off a bridge. That moment shook them all. And in the final scenes, June is pulled into a black van. No one knows where she's going. Is she being punished? Or is something bigger happening? In the darkest corners of Gilead, a spark had been lit, and June Osborne, once Offred, had made a silent promise to herself: they can control my body, but they will never break my soul. Asterisk, she had a taste of freedom and lost it again. With chains on her wrists and fire in her eyes, June stood pregnant, trapped in the world that stole her child, her name, and nearly her mind. But this time, something inside her had changed. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing for war. Asterisk, June's escape at the end of season 1 didn't lead to freedom, it led to tighter chains. Gilead was watching her more closely than ever, but there was one thing even they couldn't control now: she was pregnant. Carrying a child in Gilead gave her value, but it also gave her power. And June had no intention of wasting it. Hidden away by Nick, the driver who had secretly fallen in love with her, June was given a small window of hope. For weeks, she stayed in hiding, listening to news on a Forbidden's radio, praying for an opening. But Gilead's grip was too strong. She was recaptured and returned to her prison, to serve again in the Waterford home now as a glowing symbol of Gilead's success, a fertile handmaid who was finally with child. As her belly grew, so did her quiet defiance. She looked Serena joy in the eyes and refused to be small. She challenged Commander Waterford with every word and silence. And with the child inside her, she began to feel the power of legacy. This wasn't just her fight anymore, it was for the world her child would be born into. Serena, once cold and distant, began to show cracks. She was jealous yet protective. She longed to raise June's baby as her own, but deep inside even Serena knew Gilead was rotten. Her pain turned to cruelty and then to confusion. She punished June, then read forbidden books with her in the night. The lines between enemy and ally blurred, but trust never formed. Meanwhile, Moira had escaped to Canada. Living free, she faced a different battle survivor's guilt. Every meal, every safe breath, reminded her of the women still trapped back home. Through her eyes, we saw the truth. The world hadn't forgotten Gilead. There were protests, refugee camps, and whispers of what went on behind its borders. June's voice still echoed, even if the world couldn't yet hear it. Then came the most painful moment. June gave birth alone in an abandoned house. No doctors, no nurses. Just pain, silence, and strength. She named the baby Holly after her own mother, a fierce woman who had warned her about staying silent. It should have been a joyful beginning, but Gilead found her again. And this time, she was brought back not just as a handmaid, but as a mother who had no say in her child's future. Serena named the baby Nicole and took her as her own. June was forced to watch from a distance, her milk given to another woman, her child held by the people who stole everything from her. But something had changed in the other handmaids. They saw June's courage, they saw her pain, and they remembered their own, the Marthas, the silent women who worked in kitchens, and shadows began to help her. A network formed, secret and dangerous. And when a chance came to smuggle the baby out, June made a decision no mother should have to make. She gave Nicole to Emily, another handmaid who had suffered deeply, and told her to run. As the plane carrying Emily and Nicole left Gilead's skies, June stood hidden in the darkness. She could have gone, she could have escaped, but she stayed. Not because she was weak, but because she knew the fight wasn't over. Not while her first daughter Hannah was still trapped. Not while Gilead still breathed. Season 2 ended with silence. No music, no words. Just June's face, bloody, tired, but burning with purpose. She had given away her chance at freedom for something greater, rebellion. And in that moment, she was no longer just Offred. She was a mother, she was a fighter. She was the spark that could burn Gilead to the ground. Asterisk, she stayed behind when she could have run. She gave up freedom so her child could have it. Now June walks through Gilead not as a servant, but as a spark. The red robes still cover her body, but rebellion hides beneath every step. She is done obeying. She is ready to burn it all down quietly, smartly, and without mercy. Asterisk Season 3 begins with a shift. June is no longer just a handmaid. She is a symbol, a leader in secret. She lives in two worlds, now pretending to serve while quietly planning. Her daughter Nicole is safe in Canada, but Hannah is still in Gilead. That thought drives her. It fuels her every decision. Commander Lawrence, the man behind Gilead's twisted economy, becomes her new assignment. He's unlike the others. Cold. Calculating, sharp, but something in him suggests he doesn't fully believe in Gilead anymore. He is unpredictable, dangerous, yet possibly useful. June studies him, careful not to trust too quickly. With Lawrence, everything is a test. At the same time, Serena Joy is spiraling. She helped June's baby escape, but the price was steep. She's lost her child, her power, and her faith in Gilead. Her marriage to Fred is cracking, poisoned by control and cruelty. Serena is torn between the image she helped build and the horror she can no longer ignore. In her pain, she turns to June, two enemies, now bound by grief and motherhood. But trust between them is like glass easily broken. June begins to connect with other handmaids and Marthas, forming a secret network. They pass messages, trade supplies, and share whispers of hope. Each act is a risk. Each word spoken could lead to torture or death, But June no longer fears punishment. She fears silence. She fears doing nothing while children grow up calling. Strangers, mother. Meanwhile, in Canada, Moira and Luke raise Nicole, knowing they are being watched. Gilead wants the child back. They use every trick, propaganda, legal pressure, and emotional manipulation. Serena is flown to Canada pretending to be a grieving mother. She weeps in public, knowing the world is watching. But behind closed doors, she's still unsure what side she's really on. In one chilling scene, Serena holds Nicole in her arms. For a moment, it feels real, a family reunited. But June knows better. Serena helped build the cage that keeps mothers and daughters apart. June meets Serena face to face again. Their words are quiet but deadly. There is no forgiveness, only the truth. You don't deserve her. Back in Gilead, June pushes harder. She gets handmaids transferred. She moves children secretly. Every step is dangerous. But then something incredible happens. June convinces Commander Lawrence to help smuggle children out of Gilead. It's risky, nearly impossible, but he agrees. Together, with the help of dozens of Marthas and Olis, they form a plan. As the tension builds, June becomes more reckless. She pushes others. She risks her life. She watches her friends suffer. One handmaid, Eleanor, dies. Another, of Matthew, breaks under pressure. The cost of rebellion is rising, but June refuses to stop. She is haunted by the faces of the children she couldn't save. And then, the night comes. June leads dozens of children through the shadows. The plan is clear. Get them to the airport, get them on the plane, and don't look back. She puts on a disguise, carries one child after another, and guides terrified souls to a sliver of freedom. The mission almost fails. Soldiers arrive, panic spreads. But June distracts them, standing alone in a field, drawing the enemy away. She is shot, bleeding, crawling through grass, but the plane takes off. The children are safe. Nicole will not grow up alone. The season ends with June being carried by handmaids, wounded but alive. Her body is broken, but her spirit is stronger than ever. Gilead may have stolen her name, her child, her future, but it will never steal her purpose. June is no longer a symbol of survival. She is a soldier in red. And the war has just begun. She bled for their freedom. She nearly died to get the children out. But now, June isn't behind Gilead's walls. She's in Canada safe. Or at least that's what they say. Because the body may leave Gilead, but the mind, the rage, and the scars they follow. June is free, but peace? That's another prison entirely. Season 4 opens with June hiding in a farmhouse, barely alive after being shot. She's cared for by fellow handmaids who stitch her wounds and shield her from patrols, but Gilead's grip remains close. Soldiers. Find them. Friends die. And June runs again, this time carrying nothing but fury. She escapes by inches, and with each breath she transforms. The quiet servant is gone. What's left is a fighter who wants Gilead to burn. She finally reaches Freedom, Canada. But it isn't the heaven she imagined. The streets are clean. The skies are open, but the pain is louder here. Without chains on her wrists, June feels the full weight of everything she lost. Her daughter Hannah is still a prisoner. The friends she buried are ghosts in her dreams. And now that she's free, everyone wants her to be grateful. But June is not ready to be calm. She is still in survival mode. Still at war. Luke greets her with love, but June is distant. They don't know how to touch each other anymore. 2. Much has changed. Moira tries to help, but even she can't reach June now. There's one person who might. Nicole. June holds her second daughter, kisses her forehead, and in that small moment feels human again, but peace is brief. Because Gilead isn't finished with her. And she isn't finished with it. Fred, Waterford, and Serena Joy are imprisoned in Canada, but instead of facing punishment, Fred begins to play the victim. He manipulates the system, paints himself as a diplomat. June watches it all unfold with growing rage. The man who raped her, who stole her life, now smiles on TV screens, wears suits, and speaks of honor. The world listens. And June begins to boil while Gilead tries to make deals behind the scenes. June testifies in court. She doesn't break down, she doesn't cry. She tells her story raw, unfiltered, and brutal. The truth is laid bare. Every word a weapon. But even after her voice shakes the courtroom, it's not enough. Fred might be released as part of a diplomatic exchange. A monster traded for political peace. June can't accept that. She meets with Commander Lawrence again. Then with Nick, quiet hands move behind walls. Deals are made. And one night, Fred Waterford is taken from his prison cell, not to freedom, but to justice. Real justice. He's delivered into the woods. Not to a courtroom, not to a cage, but to June, and dozens of former handmaids are waiting. What happens next is not a trial. It is fury unleashed. June leads the charge. Her hands around his throat, her breath steady, her rage cold and focused. She kills him not just for herself, but for every woman he ever hurt. Every child he stole, every soul he broke. Later, June stands over Fred's body, blood on her face, her heart thudding with both horror and release. She sends a final message, Fred's finger, mailed to Serena Joy. No more silence. No more pretending. The handmaids are done waiting. Back home, Luke sees her. She walks into the nursery, covered in blood, and kisses her sleeping daughter. Luke watches her in shock. He doesn't say a word, because he understands the woman who returned from Gilead is not the same woman who left. June is no longer just a mother. She is no longer just a victim. She is a weapon forged by suffering. Season 4 ends not with hope, but with reckoning. The question is no longer, will June survive? It's, what will she become now that she's free to act?